It was humanity's most classified military preparation, a series of contingencies developed over 2 decades of planning for first contact scenarios. The protocol assumed the worst-case scenario, hostile aliens with superior technology arriving without warning. It also assumed humanity would need to be ready to fight for its survival using every advantage their home system could provide. As Kane's transport streaked through the pre-dawn darkness toward Earth Defense Command, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything humanity had built, everything they had become, was about to be tested in ways no one had imagined. The Earth Defense Command Center was a marvel of engineering, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. Kane emerged from the high-speed elevator into a bustling hive of activity. Dozens of technicians worked at stations monitoring everything from Earth's orbital defense platforms to the automated mining operations in the asteroid belt. The main display showed a tactical overview of the solar system, with red markers indicating the approaching alien fleet. General Morrison met Kane at the entrance, her expression grim. "Admiral, glad you could make it. We've been tracking these contacts for the last 6 hours. Whatever they are, they're big, they're fast, and they're not responding to any of our communication attempts." Kane studied the tactical display. The alien fleet consisted of 12 massive objects, each one easily the size of a small city. Their course was direct and unwavering, aimed straight for the heart of the solar system. More troubling was their speed. They were moving at nearly 10% of light speed, far faster than any human vessel could manage. "Do we have any idea of their intentions?" Kane asked. "We've been broadcasting on every frequency we can think of," Morrison replied. "Standard first contact protocols, mathematical sequences, even musical compositions." "Nothing. They're maintaining radio silence and steady course." Kane nodded, his mind already shifting into tactical mode. "What about our defensive capabilities?" Morrison gestured to another section of the display, where green markers indicated human military assets. "We had the Mars Defense Fleet, 8 heavy cruisers, and 24 escort vessels. The asteroid belt mining ships could be converted to improvised combat platforms, but they're not designed for military action. Our orbital defense stations around Earth are our strongest assets, but if these aliens make it past Mars..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. If hostile aliens reached Earth orbit, humanity's homeworld would be defenseless. The orbital stations were designed to intercept asteroids and space debris, not repel an invasion force. "What about the classified projects?" Kane asked quietly. Morrison's expression darkened. "Project Damocles is operational. We have 6 platforms positioned throughout the inner system, but they've never been tested against unknown alien technology. Project Damocles." Kane knew the details from his security clearance, but seeing the weapons deployed, in a real scenario, sent a chill through him. Humanity had learned hard lessons from their own history. When facing an unknown threat with superior technology, conventional weapons might not be enough. Damocles represented humanity's willingness to use any means necessary to protect their home. The weapons platforms were hidden throughout the solar system, disguised as routine scientific equipment or mining stations. Each one carried a payload that could sterilize a planet. They were humanity's insurance policy, and Kane prayed they wouldn't need to use them. "Admiral," a technician called out from his station, "we're getting new readings from the alien fleet. They're slowing down." Kane and Morrison moved to the technician station, studying the updated data. The alien vessels had indeed reduced their speed, but their course remained unchanged. They were still heading directly for Mars. "Could be a deceleration maneuver," Morrison suggested. "Maybe they're planning to stop at Mars." Kane wasn't so optimistic. "Or they're slowing down to get a better look at our defenses before they attack." As if summoned by his words, the main display erupted in new contacts. Dozens of smaller objects were separating from the main alien fleet, spreading out in a search pattern that would give them a comprehensive view of the inner solar system. "Reconnaissance probes," Kane said grimly. "They're mapping our defenses." Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All Mars Defense Fleet vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. Unknown alien fleet approaching your position. Maintain defensive positions, but do not, repeat, do not, engage unless fired upon. We are still attempting peaceful contact." Kane watched the tactical display as the human fleet moved into defensive formation around Mars. 8 heavy cruisers and 24 escorts against 12 alien motherships of unknown capability. If it came to a fight, humanity would be heavily outgunned. "General," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." Morrison and Kane hurried to the communication station. "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The speakers crackled with static before a voice emerged, speaking in accented but recognizable English. Humans of the third planet. I am War Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your species has been selected for incorporation into our empire. You will surrender all military assets and submit to our authority. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your worlds. Kane felt his blood turn to ice. The message was clear, direct, and utterly without compromise. These aliens hadn't come to talk. They had come to conquer. Morrison activated the response channel. This is General Morrison of Earth Defense Command. We are prepared to discuss diplomatic relations, but we will not surrender. I suggest you reconsider your approach. The alien response came almost immediately. Humans are clearly a primitive species if you believe negotiation is possible. You have one of your time periods called hours to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will demonstrate the futility of resistance. The communication cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Kane stared at the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. Humanity had 1 hour to decide between submission and war against an unknown alien force with vastly superior technology. General, Kane said quietly, I recommend we activate full Prometheus protocol and prepare for hostile contact. These aliens aren't here to talk. Morrison nodded grimly. Agreed. Signal all defense platforms and prepare our contingencies. She turned to the communications officer. Send a message to all human settlements. Tell them we're facing potential hostile contact and to prepare for emergency protocols. Kane watched as the command center erupted into controlled chaos, officers and technicians preparing for humanity's first interstellar war. Outside, the alien fleet continued its steady approach toward Mars, unaware that they were about to face a species that had never learned how to surrender. The Zephyrians had conquered 200 worlds over 3 millennia. They had faced proud warrior races, ancient civilizations, and species with technology that rivaled their own. They had always emerged victorious, adding new territories to their vast empire and new slaves to their labor force. They had never faced humans before. As the countdown to their ultimatum ticked away, neither side fully understood what was about to unfold. The Zephyrians saw humans as just another primitive species to be conquered and enslaved. The humans saw the aliens as an existential threat to everything they had built and everyone they loved. Both were right, but only one would survive to remember this moment. The die was cast, and the universe would never be the same. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair as the UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced heavy cruiser, took its position in the defensive formation around Mars. Through the bridge viewports, the red planet hung like a bloody jewel against the starfield, its 2 small moons visible as distant specks. Somewhere beyond Mars orbit, the alien fleet was approaching, and Elena could feel the tension radiating from every member of her crew. Captain, her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Park, called out from his station. Long-range sensors are picking up the alien fleet. 12 large vessels, still maintaining formation and course directly for our position. Elena studied the tactical display projected above her command console. The human defensive fleet looked pitifully small compared to the approaching alien armada. 8 heavy cruisers and 24 escort vessels against 12 motherships that dwarfed even humanity's largest space stations. What's our weapons status? Elena asked. All missile tubes loaded and ready. Particle beam arrays charged. Point defense systems online. Park reported. Captain, I have to say, our weapons are untested against alien technology. We have no idea if they'll be effective. Elena nodded grimly. The UES Defiance carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever developed, but they had been designed to fight other human vessels in theoretical conflicts. Against alien technology that could propel massive ships at 10% of light speed, their effectiveness was completely unknown. Communications? Any word from the aliens since their ultimatum? Elena asked. Nothing, Captain, replied Lieutenant Singh from the communications station. Radio silence for the last 37 minutes. Their deadline expires in 23 minutes. Do. Elena activated the fleet communication channel. All vessels, this is Captain Vasquez aboard the Defiance. Final weapons check. If these aliens want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. Remember, we're not just defending Mars, we're defending every human being in the solar system. Responses crackled back from the other 7 heavy cruisers and their escort squadrons. Captain Zhang aboard the UES Retribution. Commander Santos on the UES Vigilant, and the other fleet commanders acknowledged their readiness. Elena felt a surge of pride in these officers. They all knew they were facing impossible odds, but not one had suggested retreat or surrender. On Earth, Admiral Kane stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the same tactical display that showed on every human military vessel in the solar system. The alien deadline was approaching, and the Zephyrian fleet had made no indication of slowing down or changing course. "Admiral," General Morrison said quietly, joining him at the display, "all Prometheus Protocol assets are in position. The Damocles platforms are armed and targeted. Mars' defense fleet is ready for engagement. We're as prepared as we can be." Kane nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "General, I've been studying the alien fleet composition. 12 large vessels, but they're not spreading out for a conventional attack formation. They're maintaining a tight group formation." Morrison frowned. "What are you thinking?" "I think they're overconfident," Kane replied. "They've been broadcasting demands and ultimatums like they expect us to roll over and surrender. They might not be taking our defensive capabilities seriously." "That could work in our favor," Morrison said. Kane's expression darkened. "Or it could mean they have weapons so superior to ours that they don't consider our fleet a threat worth worrying about." The tactical display updated as new sensor readings came in from the Mars defense fleet. The alien vessels were now close enough for detailed scans, and the results were sobering. Each alien mothership was over 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapon ports. Worse, the scans revealed energy signatures that were completely unfamiliar to human technology. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "Mars defense fleet is requesting permission to engage if the aliens cross the designated boundary." Kane looked at the display. The designated boundary was a line drawn 1 million kilometers from Mars' orbit. If the aliens crossed that line without responding to communications, the human fleet was authorized to open fire. "Permission granted," Kane said. "Signal Captain Vasquez that she is weapons-free if the aliens violate our defense perimeter." On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Elena received the authorization with a mixture of relief and dread. At least now she wouldn't have to wait for the aliens to fire first. If they crossed the line in space that humanity had drawn, she could act to defend her people. "Captain," Park called out, his voice tight with tension, "alien fleet is approaching the boundary. Range 1.2 million kilometers and closing." Elena activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All vessels, this is the Defiance. Alien fleet is approaching the defense perimeter. Weapons free on my command. Remember your training and trust in your equipment." The bridge of the Defiance fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronics and the steady reports from the sensor stations. Elena watched the tactical display as the alien fleet drew closer to the invisible line that marked humanity's last stand. 1.1 million kilometers, Park reported. Elena felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the bridge's cool temperature. Every second that passed brought the aliens closer to Mars and the human colonies scattered across its surface. Nearly 2 million people called Mars home, and they were counting on the defense fleet to protect them. 1 million kilometers, Park announced. Aliens are crossing the boundary. Elena took a deep breath. "All vessels, this is Captain Vasquez. Commence firing." The space around Mars erupted in violence as the human fleet unleashed everything it had. Missile salvos streaked across the void, their drives painting brilliant lines against the darkness. Particle beams lanced out from the heavy cruisers, invisible streams of accelerated particles designed to tear through armor and hulls. Point defense systems came online, preparing to intercept any return fire. For a moment, Elena allowed herself to hope. The human missiles were state-of-the-art, each one carrying enough explosive power to crack a small asteroid. The particle beams could cut through a kilometer of solid rock. Surely such firepower would at least damage the alien fleet. Her hopes died as she watched the tactical display. The human missiles struck the alien shields and simply vanished, absorbed by energy barriers that showed no sign of overload or failure. The particle beams struck the same shields and dispersed harmlessly, their focused energy scattered like light hitting a mirror. "Captain!" Park said, his voice hollow with shock. "No effect. Their shields are completely absorbing our weapons fire." Before Elena could respond, the alien fleet finally returned fire. Beams of searing red energy lanced out from the Zephyrian motherships, crossing the void between the fleets in seconds. The UES Cavalier, one of the escort vessels, took a direct hit and simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, and the next it was an expanding cloud of superheated debris. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena shouted. "All vessels, scatter formation." The human fleet spread out, their captains desperately trying to avoid the deadly alien weapons. But the red beams tracked them with terrible accuracy. The UES Hawk exploded in a brilliant flash. The heavy cruiser UES Stalwart took multiple hits and broke apart, its hull cracking like an eggshell. Elena watched in horror as her fleet was systematically destroyed. Humanity's most advanced warships were being swatted aside like insects. The aliens weren't just winning, they were demonstrating the complete futility of human resistance. "Captain," her communications officer called out, her voice shaking. "Captain Zhang on the Retribution is requesting permission to ram the lead alien vessel." Elena felt her heart sink. Captain Zhang was a good officer, but if he was considering a suicide run, it meant he had reached the same conclusion she was approaching. Conventional weapons were useless against the alien shields. They needed a different approach. "Negative on the ram attack," Elena replied. "All surviving vessels, fall back to secondary positions. We need to buy time for the Damocles platforms." The Damocles platforms were humanity's last resort, hidden throughout the solar system and armed with weapons that no sane species would use in their own star system. Elena prayed there would be enough, because conventional warfare had just proven to be completely ineffective. On Earth, Admiral Kane watched the destruction of the Mars Defense Fleet with a sick feeling in his stomach. In less than 20 minutes, the aliens had destroyed 3/4 of humanity's military forces without taking a single casualty. The surviving human ships were falling back toward Mars, but it would only delay the inevitable. "General," Kane said quietly, "signal the Damocles platforms. Authorize Protocol 7. Morrison's face went pale. Protocol 7 was the nuclear option, literally. The Damocles platforms carried fusion warheads specifically designed to create artificial solar flares and electromagnetic pulses that would disrupt any electronic equipment within millions of kilometers. "Sir, that will also disable our own remaining ships," Morrison pointed out. "Our remaining ships are already doomed," Kane replied grimly. "At least this way, we might take some of the aliens with us." Morrison activated the Damocles communication system. "All Damocles platforms, this is Earth Defense Command. You are authorized for Protocol 7. Repeat, Protocol 7 is authorized." The response came from 6 different hidden locations throughout the solar system. Damocles 1, acknowledged. Protocol 7, authorized. Damocles 2, acknowledged. Standing by for targeting data. One by one, all 6 platforms confirmed the authorization. Humanity was about to unleash weapons that could sterilize planets in the hope of stopping the alien invasion. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Elena watched as the alien fleet continued its steady advance toward Mars. The Zephyrian motherships had barely slowed down during the engagement, treating the destruction of the human fleet as a minor inconvenience. "Captain," Park called out, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from multiple locations throughout the system." Elena knew what that meant. The Damocles platforms were preparing to fire. In a few minutes, this entire region of space would be flooded with radiation and electromagnetic pulses that would destroy anything with electronic components. "All hands, prepare for electromagnetic pulse," Elena announced over the ship's communication system. "Activate radiation shielding and prepare emergency backup systems." The first Damocles platform fired from its hiding place in the asteroid belt. A fusion warhead detonated between the alien fleet and Mars, creating an artificial star that blazed for nearly 30 seconds. The electromagnetic pulse raced outward at the speed of light, followed by a wave of deadly radiation. Elena watched the tactical display as the pulse struck the alien fleet. For a moment she dared to hope. The Zephyrian ships flickered on the display as the electromagnetic energy washed over them. Then their shields came back online, and they continued their advance without any apparent damage. The remaining Damocles platforms fired in sequence, each one creating another artificial star and flooding space with electromagnetic energy. But the alien fleet sailed through each pulse without slowing down or showing any sign of damage. "Captain," Park said, his voice barely a whisper, "the aliens are completely immune to electromagnetic pulses. Their shields are protecting them from everything we can throw at them." Elena stared at the display in shock. Humanity had just unleashed its most powerful weapons, enough firepower to destroy entire planets, and the aliens had simply ignored it. The Zephyrian fleet was now less than an hour away from Mars orbit, and there was nothing left to stop them. On Earth, the mood in the Defense Command Center was one of barely controlled despair. Every weapon humanity possessed had been tried and found wanting. The aliens were approaching Mars with complete impunity, and soon they would be in position to bombard the human colonies from orbit. "Admiral," Morrison said quietly, "should we signal Mars to begin evacuation procedures?" Kane shook his head. "There's nowhere to evacuate to, and not enough time anyway. 2 million people can't be moved in an hour." He stared at the tactical display, watching as the alien fleet drew closer to humanity's first interplanetary colony. The Zephyrians had proven their technological superiority beyond any doubt. Humanity's most advanced weapons were useless against their defenses. But Kane had one more card to play. One last desperate gambit that might catch the aliens off guard. It was insane, reckless, and would probably fail, but it was the only option left. "General," Kane said slowly, "signal Captain Vasquez on the Defiance. I have new orders for her." Morrison looked at him with a mixture of hope and dread. "What kind of orders?" Kane's expression was grim as he began to outline a plan that would either save humanity or destroy what was left of their fleet. The aliens had superior technology and overwhelming firepower, but they had made one critical mistake. They thought they understood how humans would fight. Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the encrypted message that had just arrived from Earth Defense Command, reading it 3 times before she fully understood what Admiral Kane was asking her to do. The plan was absolutely insane, violated every principle of space combat doctrine, and would almost certainly result in the destruction of her ship and crew. It was also the only chance humanity had left. "Lieutenant Commander Park," Alina called out to her tactical officer. "I need you to run a calculation. What's the maximum velocity the Defiance can achieve using a full fusion core overload?" Park looked up from his station with confusion and growing alarm. "Captain, a full core overload would destroy the ship. The fusion containment systems aren't designed to handle that kind of energy release." "I didn't ask if it was safe," Elena replied. "I asked what velocity we could achieve." Park's fingers flew over his console, running calculations that had never been intended for practical use. "Assuming we bypass every safety protocol and completely overload the fusion reactor, we could, theoretically, reach 12% of light speed before the containment field fails and the ship explodes." Elena nodded grimly. 12% of light speed would put the Defiance on par with the alien motherships for velocity, at least for the few seconds before the ship tore itself apart. It might be enough. "Captain," her executive officer, Commander Sarah Torres, stepped closer to Elena's chair. "What exactly are you planning?" Elena activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. I'm about to give you orders that go against everything we've been trained to do. We're going to attempt a kamikaze run against the alien flagship. Anyone who objects can report to the escape pods immediately." The bridge fell silent as Elena's words sank in. A kamikaze run meant certain death for everyone aboard, but it also meant a chance to strike back against an enemy that had proven invulnerable to conventional weapons. Commander Torres was the first to speak. "Captain, the crew requests permission to stay at their posts." Elena felt a surge of pride in her people. They knew what she was asking, and they were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for humanity. "Very well. All departments, prepare for emergency acceleration. Engineering, I need every safety protocol disabled and the fusion core pushed beyond all operational limits." Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice crackled through the intercom. "Captain, you're asking me to turn this ship into a bomb." "That's exactly what I'm asking, Chief," Elena replied. "How long do you need?" "Give me 15 minutes to bypass the containment safeties and reconfigure the power grid." "Captain, once we start this process, there's no going back. The ship will destroy itself whether we hit the alien or not." Elena looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was 30 minutes away from Mars orbit. 15 minutes to prepare the ship, another 10 minutes to reach attack velocity, and 5 minutes of flight time before the Defiance either struck its target or exploded trying. "Do it, Chief," Elena ordered. 15 minutes and counting." Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian flagship, War Admiral Cathmore observed the scattered remains of the human defense fleet with satisfaction. The destruction had been even easier than he had anticipated. These humans possessed crude weapons and primitive technology, exactly what he expected from a young species that had barely ventured beyond their home system. "War Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the remaining human vessels are falling back toward their planet. Should we pursue and destroy them?" Cathmore considered the question. The human ships posed no threat to his fleet, but allowing them to survive might encourage further resistance. On the other hand, completely destroying them would eliminate any chance of questioning their crews about human military capabilities. "Let them retreat," Cathmore decided. "Once we establish orbital dominance over their colony world, we can deal with the survivors at our leisure. Focus on approaching the planet and preparing for bombardment." The Zephyrian War Admiral had conquered dozens of species over his long career. The pattern was always the same: demonstrate overwhelming superiority, crush their military forces, and then negotiate surrender from a position of absolute strength. The humans were following the script perfectly. What Cathmore didn't understand was that humans had never read that script. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom with barely controlled tension. "Captain, fusion core modifications are complete. We're ready to initiate the overload sequence on your command." Elena took one last look around the bridge at her crew. These were some of the finest people she had ever served with, and she was about to lead them all to their deaths. But if their sacrifice could damage or destroy even one alien mothership, it might inspire the rest of humanity to keep fighting. "All hands, prepare for emergency acceleration," Elena announced. "Engineering, initiate fusion core overload sequence." The Defiance shuddered as its fusion reactor began operating far beyond safe parameters. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship as containment field readings climbed into the red zone. Elena felt the deck vibrating beneath her feet as uncontrolled fusion energy began building to critical levels. "Helm, plot intercept course for the alien flagship," Elena ordered. "Maximum acceleration." The ship leapt forward with acceleration that pressed everyone into their seats. The inertial compensators, designed for normal space travel, couldn't handle the massive forces being generated by the overloaded fusion core. Elena felt her ribs creaking under the pressure as the Defiance accelerated toward the alien fleet. On the tactical display, she watched their velocity climb past anything a human ship had ever achieved. 8% of light speed. 9%. 10%. Containment field at 90% of failure threshold, Chief Rodriguez reported, his voice strained by the acceleration forces. "We have maybe 3 minutes before the reactor explodes." Elena could see the alien flagship growing larger on the forward view screen. The massive Zephyrian mothership was over 3 kilometers long, its hull bristling with weapons that had easily destroyed the human defense fleet. But it wasn't maneuvering to avoid the approaching Defiance. Perhaps the aliens didn't consider a single human cruiser to be a threat worth avoiding. That was their mistake. 2 minutes to impact, Park reported. Fusion containment at 95% of failure threshold. Elena activated the emergency communication system. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Defiance, to any human vessel receiving this transmission. We are commencing attack run on the alien flagship. Tell Earth that we died fighting." The alien flagship finally began to react to the approaching human ship, but it was too late. The Defiance was moving at nearly 12% of light speed, and the massive Zephyrian vessel couldn't maneuver quickly enough to avoid collision. "Impact in 30 seconds, Park announced. Fusion containment at 90 to 8%. Elena gripped her command chair and watched the alien hull fill the view screen. At this velocity, the Defiance had become a relativistic projectile, carrying kinetic energy equivalent to several nuclear warheads. Even if the alien shields could stop human weapons, they weren't designed to absorb a direct collision at near light speed. 10 seconds to impact, Park called out. "Fusion containment failing." The Defiance struck the Zephyrian flagship at 12% of light speed just as its fusion reactor reached critical failure. The kinetic energy of the collision combined with the nuclear explosion of the overloaded reactor created a blast that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. When the glare faded, the alien flagship was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of superheated debris and radiation. The UES Defiance and its crew of 300 had ceased to exist, but they had taken one of the mighty Zephyrian motherships with them. On the remaining alien vessels, the destruction of their flagship sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian command structure. War Admiral Kethmore was dead, along with the entire command staff and over 50,000 crew members. The humans had just proven that they could hurt the Zephyrian fleet, and they had done it in a way that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Sub-Admiral Vexstar, the second in command, assumed control of the remaining fleet from his position aboard the mothership Conquest of Stars. His first act was to order all vessels to spread out into a wider formation, making it impossible for another suicide attack to succeed. "Communications," Vexstar ordered. "Broadcast a message to the human planet. Tell them that for every ship they sacrifice in futile attacks, we will destroy one of their cities." But even as he gave the order, Vexstar felt a growing unease. The humans had just demonstrated a willingness to trade their own lives for the chance to inflict damage on their enemies. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Zephyrians had never faced an enemy willing to employ such tactics. On Earth, the destruction of the alien flagship sent waves of shock and celebration through the Defense Command Center. Admiral Kane watched the replay of the collision on the main display, feeling a mixture of grief for Captain Vasquez and her crew, and fierce pride in their achievement. "1 down, 11 to go," Kane said grimly. "General, signal all remaining ships to implement the same tactic. If we can destroy 2 or 3 more alien vessels, we might convince them that conquering humanity will cost more than it's worth. But even as he spoke, Kane knew that kamikaze attacks alone wouldn't be enough to defeat the alien fleet. They had proven that humans could hurt their enemies, but the cost was enormous. Humanity needed a different strategy, something that would allow them to fight back without sacrificing a ship and crew for every alien vessel destroyed. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Chen at the Cerberus 9 monitoring station had continued tracking the alien fleet throughout the battle, and she had noticed something that the military analysts had missed. Earth Defense Command, this is Dr. Chen at Cerberus 9. Her voice crackled through the communication system. I've been analyzing the alien ship's energy signatures, and I think I've found a weakness. Kane activated the communication channel immediately. Dr. Chen, this is Admiral Kane. What have you found? The alien shields that stopped our weapons, they're powered by massive energy generators that emit a very specific resonance frequency. If we could match that frequency and amplify it, we might be able to create a resonance cascade that would overload their shield generators. Kane felt a spark of hope for the first time since the battle began. How would we generate such a frequency? The asteroid mining stations have industrial plasma cutters that could be modified to emit the required resonance. Dr. Witzer, Chen explained. It would take time to reconfigure them, but it might give us a weapon that could actually penetrate alien shields. Kane looked at the tactical display, calculating the time remaining before the alien fleet reached Mars orbit. The Zephyrians had slowed their advance after the destruction of their flagship, apparently taking time to reassess the threat posed by human forces. How long would you need to modify the mining stations? Kane asked. At least 6 hours, maybe 8, Dr. Chen replied. And that's assuming we can get the necessary technical personnel to each station. Kane made his decision. Do it. I'll coordinate the defense to buy you as much time as possible. As orders went out to begin the Shield Resonance Project, Kane couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. Humanity was about to turn their peaceful mining equipment into weapons of war, using tools designed to extract resources from asteroids to fight for their very survival. The Zephyrians had brought superior technology and overwhelming force to bear against Earth. But they had made a critical error in judgment. They had assumed that humans would fight like every other species they had conquered, using conventional tactics and surrendering when those tactics proved ineffective. They were about to learn that humans didn't believe in fighting fair. When conventional weapons failed, humans improvised. When their enemies had superior shields, humans found ways around them. And when all else failed, humans were willing to sacrifice everything to protect the people they loved. The battle for Mars was far from over, and humanity was just getting started. Sub-Admiral Vexstar stood in the command center of the Conquest of Stars, studying the tactical displays with growing unease. The human kamikaze attack had accomplished more than just destroying the flagship. It had shattered the Zephyrian assumption of invulnerability and forced the fleet into a defensive posture they had never needed before. Navigation, Vexstar ordered. Maintain dispersed formation and reduce approach speed to 60%. I want maximum time to react to any suicide vessels. The tactical officer at his side, Commander Jektal, expressed the concern that was troubling them all. Sub-Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider this conquest. The humans have proven they possess weapons capable of damaging our vessels. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. One lucky strike does not constitute a military threat, Commander. These humans simply caught us off guard with their barbaric tactics. Now that we know what to expect, their crude ships pose no danger to us. But even as he spoke the words, Vexstar felt doubt gnawing at his confidence. The humans had sacrificed an entire starship and crew to destroy a single Zephyrian vessel. Such tactical thinking was completely alien to the Zephyrian way of war, which emphasized overwhelming force and minimal casualties among their own ranks. Sir, the communications officer interrupted, we're receiving transmissions from the human mining stations throughout their asteroid belt. They appear to be coordinating some kind of industrial operation. Vexstar studied the intelligence reports. The humans had dozens of automated mining platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt, equipped with powerful industrial equipment for extracting minerals from space rocks. The recent communications suggested they were modifying this equipment for some unknown purpose. Ignore the mining stations, Vexstar decided. Industrial equipment poses no threat to military vessels. Focus on approaching the human colony world and preparing for orbital bombardment. AT. It was a decision he would regret within the hour. 600 million kilometers away, Chief Mining Engineer Carlos Santos worked frantically at the control panel of Mining Station Omega. 7. Sweat beading on his forehead despite the station's climate control. Around him, a crew of technicians and engineers labored to reconfigure the massive plasma cutting array that normally sliced through asteroid rock like butter. Carlos. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through the communication system from her monitoring post. What's your status on the resonance frequency modification? Carlos wiped his forehead and checked the readouts on his console. We're about 70% complete. The plasma array is generating the target frequency, but we're having trouble with the amplification matrix. These systems weren't designed to broadcast energy over interplanetary distances. Keep working, Dr. Chen urged. The alien fleet is still 6 hours out from Mars, but we need every station online if this is going to work. Carlos looked around at his team. A mixture of miners, engineers, and technicians who had volunteered to stay behind and modify the station's equipment. None of them were military personnel, but they all understood what was at stake. If the aliens reached Mars, 2 million colonists would be at their mercy. Back to work, people, Carlos announced. We've got alien shields to crack. The modification work continued across 24 mining stations scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Each station was essentially a small industrial complex built around massive plasma cutting arrays designed to slice through solid rock. The challenge was reconfiguring these arrays to emit a specific resonance frequency that could overload alien shield generators. Dr. Chen had calculated that the combined output of all the mining stations, properly coordinated and focused, might be enough to create a resonance cascade that would penetrate Zephyrian defenses. The theory was sound, but it had never been tested against actual alien technology. On Mars, the evacuation of non-essential personnel had begun, but with only a few hours before the alien fleet arrived. Most of the population would have to shelter in underground facilities and hope their defenses held. Governor Maria Santos, Carlos's sister, coordinated the evacuation efforts from the Planetary Command Center. How many people can we get off planet? Governor Santos asked her transportation coordinator. Maybe 50,000 if we use every available ship, came the reply. The rest will have to shelter in the underground cities and mining complexes. Governor Santos nodded grimly. Mars had been designed with the possibility of asteroid impacts in mind, so most of the major population centers had extensive underground facilities. But those shelters had never been tested against alien bombardment weapons. Continue the evacuation for priority personnel, she ordered. And send a message to Earth. Tell them that Mars will not surrender, regardless of the cost. Back in the asteroid belt, the mining stations were nearing completion of their modifications. Carlos Santos stood before his transformed plasma array, now reconfigured to emit focused resonance frequencies instead of cutting through rock. The massive industrial equipment hummed with barely contained energy, ready to unleash forces that had never been intended for warfare. Dr. Chen, Carlos reported. Omega. 7 is ready for coordinated firing. Plasma array is stable and broadcasting on the target frequency. End quote. One by one, the other mining stations reported similar status. 24 industrial platforms, spread across hundreds of millions of cubic kilometers of space, were now linked together in an improvised weapons network. If Dr. Chen's calculations were correct, their combined output would create a resonance field capable of overloading alien shield technology. All stations, Dr. Chen broadcast from her monitoring post, alien fleet is entering optimal range. Prepare for synchronized firing sequence. The Zephyrian fleet, still maintaining their dispersed formation, approached the designated firing zone unaware of the trap that awaited them. Sub-Admiral Vexstar studied his tactical displays, noting that several human mining stations had gone quiet over the past few hours, probably evacuating their industrial personnel, Commander Jektal suggested. The humans appear to be abandoning their outer system facilities, Vexstar nodded, satisfied with this explanation. It made perfect sense for the humans to consolidate their remaining forces around their colony world, rather than waste resources defending mining stations. Such strategic thinking showed they were capable of rational military planning, unlike their earlier suicide attack. Maintain course and speed, Vexstar ordered. We'll be in bombardment range of their planet within the hour. At that moment, Dr. Chen initiated the coordinated firing sequence. All stations commence resonance cascade on my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire. Space erupted in invisible energy as 24 plasma arrays discharged simultaneously, their combined output creating a massive resonance field that swept across the approaching alien fleet. The resonance frequency, carefully calculated to match the Zephyrian shield generators, struck the alien vessels like a hammer blow. On the conquest of stars, alarms shrieked, as the ship's shield generators began to overload. Vexstar watched in horror as his defensive screens flickered and failed, leaving his vessel completely exposed for the first time in decades. Shield generators are failing, the engineering officer reported. The resonance cascade is overloading our containment matrices. Across the Zephyrian fleet, 11 motherships found themselves suddenly vulnerable as their supposedly invincible shields collapsed under the human resonance attack. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, Zephyrian vessels were exposed to enemy fire. But the humans weren't finished. As soon as Dr. Chen confirmed that the alien shields were down, Admiral Kane activated the second phase of his plan. All Damocles platforms. Kane broadcast from Earth Defense Command. Alien shields are down. You are authorized to engage with conventional nuclear warheads. The hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system opened fire simultaneously, launching nuclear missiles that had been useless against alien shields but were devastating against unprotected hulls. The warheads streaked across space at maximum velocity, converging on the helpless Zephyrian fleet. Sub-Admiral Vexstar watched the incoming missiles with growing panic. Without their shields, the Zephyrian vessels were just as vulnerable as any other spacecraft. Worse, their hulls had never been designed to withstand direct nuclear attack, since their shields had always provided complete protection. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vexstar shouted. "All vessels, emergency acceleration." But the massive Zephyrian motherships were too large and unwieldy for rapid course changes. The human nuclear warheads struck home with devastating effect, their fusion explosions tearing through alien hulls that had never been tested against such weapons. The mothership Eternal Victory took 3 direct hits and broke apart in a cascade of secondary explosions. The Crimson Conquest suffered a reactor breach that vaporized half its hull. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Zephyrian fleet were crippled or destroyed by weapons they had dismissed as primitive. In less than 10 minutes, humanity had reduced the alien invasion force from 11 vessels to 6, and those survivors were badly damaged and completely without defensive shields. The resonance cascade had leveled the playing field, and human nuclear weapons were proving devastatingly effective against unprotected alien hulls. "Status report," Vexstar demanded as his own ship shuddered under the impact of a near miss. 6 vessels destroyed, 3 severely damaged, his tactical officer reported. Shield generators on all remaining ships are offline. Estimated repair time is at least 8 hours. 8 hours without shields, surrounded by human weapons that could now hurt them. Vexstar realized with growing horror that his fleet was no longer the hunter, but the prey. "All vessels," he ordered. "Emergency retreat to safe distance. We need time to repair our shields and reassess the human threat." But as the battered Zephyrian fleet began its withdrawal, Admiral Kane was already implementing the next phase of his strategy. The aliens had proven vulnerable to human ingenuity, and now it was time to press that advantage. "Dr. Chen," Kane broadcast to the monitoring station. "Excellent work on the resonance cascade. Can you maintain the effect to keep their shields down?" "Negative, Admiral," Dr. Chen replied. "The mining stations need at least 2 hours to recharge their plasma arrays, and the aliens are moving out of optimal range." Kane studied his tactical displays, watching the alien fleet retreat beyond the effective range of the mining station network. The Zephyrians were wounded but not defeated, and they would eventually repair their shields and return with a better understanding of human capabilities. "General Morrison," Kane said quietly, "activate the Hercules protocol." Morrison's face went pale. "Sir, Hercules hasn't been tested. We don't even know if it will work. We just proved that human innovation can overcome alien technology," Kane replied. "It's time to find out just how far that innovation can take us." The Hercules protocol was humanity's most ambitious military project, a plan so audacious that it had been classified beyond even top-secret clearance. While the aliens retreated to lick their wounds, Earth Defense Command began implementing a strategy that would turn humanity's entire solar system into a weapon. The Zephyrians had come to conquer a primitive species armed with crude weapons. They were about to discover that they had invaded the home system of the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced. The real fight was just beginning. Sub-Admiral Vexstar stared at the damage reports scrolling across his command screens with a mixture of disbelief and growing dread. In less than 4 hours, the humans had reduced his mighty conquest fleet from 12 motherships to 6 operational vessels, and those survivors were nursing critical damage to their hulls and defensive systems. "Engineering," he called out. "What's the status on shield generator repairs?" "Sub-Admiral," the chief engineer replied, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "We've managed to restore partial shields on 3 vessels, but the human resonance weapon completely burned out the primary matrices on the other ships. Full restoration will require shipyard facilities that we don't have access to. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Zephyrian fleet was stranded in an alien star system, cut off from their supply lines and facing an enemy that had proven far more resourceful than anyone had anticipated. Worse, the humans seemed to possess an endless capacity for turning their civilian infrastructure into weapons of war. Communications, Vexstar ordered, send a priority message to the Hegemony High Command. Inform them that the human species possesses advanced military capabilities and request immediate reinforcement with a full battle fleet. Sir, his communications officer replied nervously, our long-range transmitters were damaged in the human attack. It will take several hours to repair them. Several hours they might not have. Vexstar studied the tactical display showing the positions of human forces throughout the solar system. The mining stations that had destroyed his shields were still active, and there were dozens of other installations that might pose similar threats. The humans had demonstrated an alarming ability to weaponize their industrial equipment. What Vexstar didn't know was that humanity was preparing to deploy the most audacious military strategy in the history of interstellar warfare. On Earth, Admiral Kane stood before the massive main display in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching as the final preparations for the Hercules protocol neared completion. Around him, hundreds of technicians and officers worked with desperate efficiency to coordinate the most complex military operation humanity had ever attempted. Admiral, General Morrison approached with a tablet full of status reports. All Hercules stations report ready for implementation. We're as prepared as we can be. Kane nodded grimly. The Hercules protocol was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, developed in the deepest secrecy over the past decade. It was based on a simple but terrifying premise. If humanity ever faced an existential threat from superior alien technology, they would turn their entire solar system into a weapon. Dr. Patterson, Kane called out to the project's lead scientist, give me a final briefing on Hercules' capabilities. Dr. Rebecca Patterson, the brilliant astrophysicist who had conceived the Hercules protocol, stepped forward with her tablet. Admiral, we've successfully established gravitational manipulation fields at 67 locations throughout the solar system. By coordinating these fields, we can alter the orbital mechanics of any object from asteroids to planets. Kane felt a chill as the full implications sank in. You're talking about using celestial bodies as weapons? Precisely, Dr. Patterson confirmed. We can redirect asteroids to impact alien vessels, alter planetary gravitational fields to trap enemy fleets, and if necessary, destabilize the orbits of gas giants to create system-wide destruction. General Morrison looked pale as she listened to the briefing. Doctor, what you're describing could destroy our entire solar system. Dr. Conween. Patterson nodded soberly. The final tier of Hercules protocol is mutually assured destruction on a stellar scale. If humanity cannot survive alien conquest, we ensure that our conquerors gain nothing from their victory. Kane studied the tactical display showing the positions of the gravitational manipulation stations. They were hidden throughout the solar system, disguised as routine scientific equipment or mining operations. Each station could generate localized gravitational fields powerful enough to alter the trajectory of massive objects. How long do we have before the aliens repair their shields? Kane asked. Our intelligence suggests at least 4 hours, Morrison replied. But once their defenses are restored, our conventional weapons will be useless again. Kane made his decision. Initiate Hercules Protocol, Phase 1. Target the asteroid belt. Dr. Patterson's fingers flew over her control tablet, sending activation signals to stations scattered throughout the solar system. Gravitational fields are coming online. We're establishing primary targeting on the Ceres asteroid cluster. 15 billion kilometers away, the largest asteroid in the belt began to shift in its orbit as invisible gravitational forces took hold. Ceres, a dwarf planet nearly 1,000 kilometers in diameter, slowly altered course under the influence of the human gravitational manipulators. Sub-Admiral Vexstar was reviewing damage reports when his navigation officer called out in alarm. Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the asteroid belt. Multiple large objects are changing course. Vexstar looked at the sensor displays with growing confusion. Changing course how? Asteroids don't alter their orbits without external forces. Sir, the navigation officer's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. The largest asteroid is on a direct intercept course with our position. Estimated impact in 73 minutes. Vexstar stared at the display in disbelief. The humans were somehow controlling the movement of celestial bodies, turning the asteroid belt itself into a weapon. It was a feat of engineering that surpassed even Zephyrian technology. All vessels, he ordered, emergency acceleration. We need to clear the impact zone. But as the Zephyrian fleet began its evasive maneuvers, Dr. Patterson was already implementing the next phase of humanity's assault. Admiral, redirecting secondary asteroid clusters to create a targeting matrix. The aliens won't be able to avoid all of them. Kane watched the tactical display as dozens of asteroids throughout the belt began changing course, their movements coordinated to create an inescapable web around the alien fleet. The Zephyrians had superior technology and powerful weapons, but they couldn't fight an entire solar system. Estimated time to first impact? Kane asked. 57 minutes for the primary asteroid. Dr. 100, Patterson replied. Secondary impacts will follow at 15-minute intervals. On the conquest of stars, Sub-Admiral Vextar watched in growing horror as his escape routes were systematically eliminated by converging asteroids. The humans had turned the basic laws of physics into weapons, manipulating gravity itself to trap his fleet. Engineering, he called out desperately. What's our maximum acceleration with damaged engines? 30% of normal capacity, came the reply. Sir, we can't outrun asteroids moving at these velocities. Vextar realized with growing despair that his fleet was trapped. The humans had somehow gained control over the fundamental forces that govern planetary motion, and they were using that control to destroy their enemies with rocks the size of small moons. All vessels, he ordered, target the incoming asteroids with maximum firepower. If we can break them up, we might survive the impacts. The remaining Zephyrian ships opened fire with everything they had, their energy weapons lancing out to strike the approaching asteroids. But even their most powerful beams could only chip away at the massive rocks, barely slowing their approach. On Earth, Admiral Kane watched with grim satisfaction as the alien fleet desperately tried to defend itself against humanity's celestial assault. The Zephyrians had brought superior weapons to conquer humanity, but they had never imagined facing an enemy that could weaponize the very fabric of space itself.
Admiral, Dr. K.
Patterson reported. First impact in 10 minutes. The alien fleet is trapped within the convergence zone. Kane activated the fleet-wide communication system. All human vessels, this is Admiral Kane. The alien invaders are about to learn why you should never attack the home system of a species that learned to survive on a death world. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just defend its territory, we obliterate those who threaten our people. The first asteroid struck the Zephyrian mothership Divine Retribution at 60 kilometers per second. The impact was visible from Mars as a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the sun. When the glare faded, there was nothing left of the mighty warship but expanding debris and radiation. Direct hit on Target 1, Dr. Patterson reported with professional calm. Target destroyed. The second asteroid found the Heavy of Conquest, its bulk smashing through the alien hull like it was made of paper. The ship's fusion reactors detonated in a chain reaction that vaporized what remained of the vessel. One by one, the asteroids found their marks. The Zephyrian fleet, once the terror of 200 conquered worlds, was systematically destroyed by rocks hurled with the precision of guided missiles. The aliens' superior technology was useless against the raw kinetic energy of celestial bodies moving at relativistic speeds. Sub-Admiral Vextar, aboard the last surviving mothership, watched his fleet's destruction with the resignation of someone who finally understood the true nature of their enemy. The humans weren't just another primitive species to be conquered. They were apex predators who had turned their entire star system into a weapon. Sir, his communications officer reported, long-range transmitters are finally operational. Should we send a distress signal to the hegemony? Vextar considered the question as another asteroid streaked past his ship, so close that its gravitational field triggered proximity alarms. His fleet was doomed, but perhaps he could warn his people about the true danger humanity represented. Send a message to Hegemony High Command, he ordered. Tell them that the human species possesses weapons that can manipulate gravity itself. They can turn entire star systems into weapons. Under no circumstances should any Zephyrian force approach their territory. Before he could send the warning, the final asteroid found its target. The Conquest of Stars, flagship of the 7th Conquest Fleet, was obliterated in a flash of fusion fire that marked the end of Zephyrian ambitions in the solar system. Dr. Patterson looked up from her control station. Admiral, all alien vessels have been destroyed. Hercules Protocol has achieved complete success. Kane stared at the tactical display, now showing nothing but expanding debris fields where the alien fleet had been. In less than 6 hours, humanity had gone from facing imminent conquest to completely annihilating the most powerful military force in galactic history. Dr. Ney said, Patterson. Kane said quietly, what are the implications of what we've just accomplished? The galaxy will know that humanity can manipulate gravity on a stellar scale. Dr. Patterson's expression was thoughtful as she considered the question. Admiral, we've just announced to the universe that Earth is not a target for conquest. Any species that attacks humanity risks facing weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. Kane nodded, understanding the full weight of their victory. The Zephyrians had come expecting to conquer a primitive species with crude weapons. Instead, they had encountered predators who could turn the laws of physics themselves into instruments of war. General Morrison, Kane said, send a message to all human colonies. Tell them that the threat has been eliminated and that humanity's sovereignty has been established beyond any doubt. As the word spread throughout human space, celebrations erupted on every world and station. Humanity had not only survived their first interstellar war, but had won it so decisively that the enemy had been completely obliterated. On Mars, Governor Maria Santos stood before the planetary communication array and broadcast a message that would be remembered for generations. People of Mars, people of Earth, people of all human worlds. Today we prove that humanity will never bow to alien conquest. We turned our entire solar system into a weapon and showed the galaxy that we are not prey to be hunted, but predators who will fight with every tool at our disposal. The celebration was premature in one respect. The Zephyrian hegemony still controlled vast territories across the galaxy, and they would eventually learn of the Seventh Conquest Fleet's fate. But they would also learn that humanity possessed weapons beyond their understanding, capable of destroying entire solar systems. Word of humanity's victory spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Species that had cowered under Zephyrian rule for millennia began to whisper that perhaps the mighty hegemony was not invincible after all. Some even began to quietly contact human diplomatic missions, hoping to establish alliances with the species that had achieved the impossible. Admiral Kane stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching as reports of galactic reaction to their victory flowed in. Humanity had won more than just a single battle. They had announced their arrival on the galactic stage as a force that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Admiral, General Morrison said, joining him at the main display, what happens now? The galaxy knows what we're capable of. Kane smiled grimly. Now we make sure that every species in the galaxy understands a simple truth. Humanity protects its friends and destroys its enemies. We're not looking for conquest, but we'll never allow anyone to threaten our people again. The Zephyrian Seventh Conquest Fleet had come to Earth expecting easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had encountered humanity at its most dangerous. Cornered, desperate, and fighting for survival with the accumulated knowledge and resources of an entire star system. They had learned too late that humans don't fight fair. When facing superior technology, humans innovate. When confronting overwhelming force, humans adapt. And when threatened with extinction, humans become the most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever seen. The universe would remember this lesson for a very long time. The age of humanity among the stars had begun, and it had begun with a demonstration of power that would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. Earth's children had proven that some species are too dangerous to conquer, too innovative to suppress, and too determined to ever surrender. The Zephyrians had attacked Earth expecting to add another world to their empire. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that would reshape the destiny of every civilization among the stars.